Welcome to Sports Bios, where we delve into the fascinating lives of athletic icons. And today, we're going to embark on a captivating journey through the remarkable life of Joe Louis, the legendary boxer who left an indelible mark on the world with his formidable punching power, enduring charisma, and unwavering determination. Born on May 13, 1914, in Lafayette, Alabama, Joseph Louis Barrow would eventually become one of the most beloved and revered figures in American sports history, a testament to the power of human spirit and the unyielding pursuit of greatness. The air was thick with tension, the smell of cotton and sweat hanging heavy over the fields where sharecroppers like Monroe Barrow and Lily Reese Barrow toiled tirelessly to provide for their 8 children. The family's humble dwelling, a small cabin on the Cox plantation, would be Joe Louis's home for the first 7 years of his life, a tiny, rustic world that would shape his character and forge his resolve. The young Joe Louis grew up in a world where racial tensions simmered just below the surface, like a pot about to boil over. The Ku Klux Klan was active in the region, its presence a constant threat to the safety and well-being of African Americans. Despite these dangers, Monroe Barrow instilled in his children a strong sense of self-worth and determination, values that would serve Joe Louis well throughout his life. Lily Barrow, a devout Christian, also played a significant role in shaping her son's character, teaching him the importance of compassion, hard work, and perseverance. Her words, laced with wisdom and love, would echo in Joe Louis's mind long after he left the rural South behind. In 1921, the Barrow family relocated to Detroit, Michigan, in search of better economic opportunities, a move that would prove pivotal in Joe Louis's development. The city's vibrant cultural scene, which included jazz music, dance, and sports, would also have a profound impact on the young Joe Louis, broadening his horizons and fueling his ambitions. He was exposed to a more urban environment, where the sounds of Duke Ellington and Bessie Smith filled the air, and the likes of Sugar Ray Robinson and Henry Armstrong were already making waves in the boxing world. As we explore Joe Louis's formative years, it's essential to consider the historical context in which he grew up. The 1920s were a time of great social change in America, with the Harlem Renaissance underway and African American culture experiencing a resurgence. However, this era was also marked by intense racial prejudice, as evidenced by the notorious Red Summer of 1919, during which racial violence erupted across the country. Against this backdrop, Joe Louis's early life was shaped by the harsh realities of racism, poverty, and limited access to education. He faced challenges that would have broken a lesser person, but Joe Louis was made of sterner stuff, his spirit unbreakable, like the mighty oak trees that lined the rural roads of his childhood. Despite these challenges, Joe Louis found solace in sports, particularly boxing. He began training at the local Brewster Recreation Center, where he met his first coach, Charles "Sonny" Roche. Under Roche's guidance, Joe Louis developed his skills, learning the fundamentals of the sport and quickly demonstrating a natural aptitude for it. As he honed his craft, Joe Louis also began to forge a sense of identity, one that would be deeply rooted in his African American heritage and his determination to succeed in a predominantly white sport. He was driven by a fierce desire to prove himself, to show the world that he was more than just a poor black boy from the rural South. From his relationships with family members and mentors to his experiences with racism and adversity, every aspect of Joe Louis's formative years contributed to the development of the man he would become, a champion, a hero, and an enduring symbol of hope and resilience. The year 1934 marked a watershed moment in his life as he began to attract attention from prominent figures in the sport, including the enigmatic John Roxborough, a Detroit numbers kingpin who would later become his manager. Roxborough's keen eye for talent and his ability to navigate the complex world of professional boxing made him the perfect mentor for the young Joe Louis. On July 4, 1934, Joe Louis made his professional debut at the Bacon Arena in Chicago, defeating Jack Kraken in a first-round knockout that sent shockwaves through the boxing community. This impressive start marked the beginning of a remarkable journey that would take him to the pinnacle of success in the boxing world. As he stood in the ring, his arms raised in triumph, Joe Louis proclaimed, "I'm just getting started, and I won't stop until I'm the best." His words would prove prophetic, as he went on to rack up an impressive string of victories that earned him the nickname the Brown Bomber. Over the next few years, Joe Louis's formidable punching power and relentless fighting style made him a fan favorite, and his charismatic personality endeared him to the public. He was a force to be reckoned with, leaving a trail of defeated opponents in his wake. On September 24, 1935, he faced off against Max Baer at Yankee Stadium in New York City, defeating the former heavyweight champion by technical knockout in the fourth round. This victory cemented Joe Louis's status as a rising star in the boxing world and set him on a collision course with the reigning heavyweight champion, James J. Braddock. He was a master of psychological warfare, often using his charisma and confidence to unsettle his opponents before the bell even rang. This was evident in his pre-fight interviews, where he would often declare, "I'm gonna knock him out, and there's nothing he can do about it." His words were laced with a sense of conviction that was both intimidating and inspiring. The build-up to the Braddock fight was intense, with many predicting that Joe Louis would emerge victorious. On June 19, 1937, the two fighters faced off at Comiskey Park in Chicago, with Joe Louis ultimately winning by knockout in the eighth round. This victory marked a significant turning point in Joe Louis's career, as he solidified his position as the dominant force in the heavyweight division. As we examine the nuances of Joe Louis's career, it becomes evident that his rivalry with Max Schmeling was one of the most compelling aspects of his story. The two fighters had faced off previously in 1936, with Schmeling emerging victorious in a non-title bout. However, Joe Louis was determined to avenge his earlier loss and prove his superiority. On June 22, 1938, at Yankee Stadium, Joe Louis knocked out Schmeling in just 2 minutes and 4 seconds of the first round, silencing the critics who had doubted him after his initial defeat. This victory marked a defining moment in Joe Louis's career, as he cemented his legacy as one of the greatest boxers of all time. As the years passed, Joe Louis continued to defend his title against all comers, facing off against fighters like Billy Conn, Bob Pastor, and Jersey Joe Walcott. His reign as champion was marked by a series of epic battles, each one showcasing his remarkable skill, strength, and determination. Through it all, Joe Louis remained humble and grounded, never forgetting his roots or the struggles he had faced on his journey to the top. He became an inspiration to countless young boxers, including a young Muhammad Ali, who would later cite Joe Louis as one of his greatest influences. Despite the many challenges he faced outside the ring, including racism and financial struggles, Joe Louis remained focused on his craft, always striving to improve and adapt. His legacy extended far beyond his impressive record or his numerous title defenses. He had become a symbol of hope and resilience for African Americans across the country, proof that with hard work and determination, anything was possible. As he looked out at the sea of adoring fans who packed the arenas to watch him fight, Joe Louis knew that he had truly earned his place as one of the greatest boxers of all time. As Joe Louis's career began to wind down, like a mighty storm slowly dissipating on the horizon, he faced a new set of challenges outside the ring that would test his mettle in ways he never could have imagined. The once mighty champion, who had thrilled audiences with his devastating punching power and captivating charisma, now found himself entangled in a web of financial woes, courtesy of poor management and excessive spending. It was as if the very fabric of his being, which had been woven from threads of determination and resilience, was beginning to fray. In 1942, Louis joined the United States Army, where he served for 3 years, boosting morale and participating in exhibition matches to raise funds for the war effort. I recall a conversation with Sugar Ray Robinson, who fondly remembered Louis's time in the Army, saying, "Joe was like a beacon of hope, Howard. He'd walk into those Army bases, and the troops would go wild." After his discharge, Louis attempted a comeback, but his performances were lackluster, and he eventually retired from boxing in 1951. It was as if the fire that had once burned within him, driving him to greatness, had slowly flickered out, leaving behind only embers of what once was. I often wonder, what would have happened if Louis had been given better guidance, better management? Would his career have unfolded differently? The answer, much like the mysteries of the human heart, remains elusive. In his later years, Joe Louis faced significant health problems, including high blood pressure, heart disease, and arthritis. It was as if his body, which had once been a finely tuned instrument, capable of delivering devastating blows with precision and power, was now slowly betraying him. He also struggled with financial difficulties, despite receiving support from friends and former opponents, such as Max Schmeling. I recall visiting Louis at his home in the 1970s, and he would often speak about the struggles he faced, saying, "Howard, it's tough when you're no longer on top. People forget about you, and you're left to fight for scraps." It was a poignant reminder that even the greatest among us are not immune to the vicissitudes of fate. In 1969, Louis was hospitalized for a stroke, which left him partially paralyzed. The news sent shockwaves through the sports world, and I remember feeling a sense of despair wash over me as I reported on his condition. It was as if the very foundation of our collective memory, which had been built on the pillars of Louis's greatness, was beginning to crumble. He passed away on April 12, 1981, at the age of 66, due to complications from cardiac arrest. The news of his passing sent a ripple effect through the world, with tributes pouring in from every corner of the globe. As the first reflect on that day, I am reminded of the words of the great poet Langston Hughes, who once wrote, "What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?" For Joe Louis, the dream had been to leave an indelible mark on the world, to transcend the boundaries of sport and become something more. And as we gathered to bid him farewell, it was clear that he had succeeded in ways that few could have imagined. The funeral procession, which wound its way through the streets of New York City, was a testament to Louis's enduring legacy. Thousands lined the streets, paying their respects to a man who had given so much to the world. I recall seeing Muhammad Ali, then a young and brash champion, standing in the crowd, his eyes fixed on the hearse as it passed by. It was as if he knew that he was witnessing something special, something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. He broke down racial barriers, inspired countless young athletes, and left an indelible mark on the sport of boxing. His story serves as a reminder that, with hard work, determination, and perseverance, anything is possible, regardless of one's background or circumstances. His story serves as a powerful reminder of the human spirit's capacity for greatness, both in triumph and adversity. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. For Joe Louis, excellence was not just a goal, it was a way of life. And as we strive to emulate his example, to reach for greatness in our own lives, we would do well to remember the lessons he taught us, that with hard work, determination, and perseverance, anything is possible. That's all for today's Sports Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm Howard Closewell reminding you to keep shooting for your goals.